Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Jack Oates, the GOAT. You either know or you don't. So, here's a video talking about something about the Spirit Guardian, something about Noelle, and it all came from thinking about Sister Lily. I mean, who doesn't want to think about Sister Lily? Si sta riri. But let's start from the top, because when I was thinking about Si sta riri, I got to thinking, it took me to, you know, some places, and then I ended up in the Heart Kingdom, and I was like, you know what? I've done all this research on, like, gods and demons and all that stuff, and why not look up some lore about Undine while I'm at it? And even though I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on it, I'm glad I looked at it because there is some stuff that I read that led me right here to this video that you're about to listen to. So, before I say anything, of course, I'm not telling you guys what to think. I'm not saying this is 100% right, but I do think this could play a factor somehow in the future. So, especially when it gets to the Sistariri part, it's it's one of those like, okay, that's really cool, but like, what does it do? And for that, I really don't have the answer. But let's just talk about what I found. So I started questioning, like, why do they call the mages in the Heart Kingdom spirit guardians instead of like, the diamond has the eight shining generals, which is a play off of course, the diamond shining, and then you have the magic knights and you have spade knights. Like, I mean, why is this spirit guardians? And the only spirit there is Undine. And, I guess a logical mindset would say, like, oh, you know what? They're guarding the water spirit, of course. And, that's all well and good. That's not ridiculous to think at all. It's semantic right there. It's just straightforward thinking. But that's not what I'm good at. So I'm going to tell you what my crazy crack brain was thinking. So when I looked up Undine, and I read up on, everything that Undine is known for in lore, they of course have to mention beings like the Sylph, Salamander, and the Earth Gnome, who is actually is it's supposed to be a pygmy. Pygmy is the right term for it, apparently. Although I don't like it, that's just how they wrote it. But something really cool came up, and the thing was that they talked about these spirits marrying mortals, and thus creating a hybrid. And I thought that was really interesting. And I know you guys are probably just hybrided out from my channel, the Broker's channel, of course. I mean, all we do is talk about hybrids. And I'm going to get to that, why this hybrid talk seems to be coming up more and more as the series goes on. I don't think it's us really stretching as far as this is Tabata telling a very specific story based on some specific lore. But I read about these spirits marrying mortals, and I'm thinking, why would they want to marry a mortal? And of course, as you read on, the magic of reading, it provides you with more information. It says that these beings lack an immortal soul, which everything has, apparently. But these beings do not have an immortal soul. So what they do is they marry a human, and then this way they're able to acquire that soul, and then when they have a child, that child also has an immortal soul as well. And then they even go as far to say that these spirits can even wed with gods, but they won't gain that immortal soul. Instead, the god will pretty much downgrade and have a mortal soul. So I thought it was all really, really cool to think about. And I'm thinking, okay, let's look at the Spirit Guardians. We have Floga for fire. We have the Wind Dude. I don't know how to say his name. It's like blah, 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 blah. We have Gaja for lightning. We have Potroth for plants. and then I'm forgetting another one. So not Serato, for Earth, and it's really cool to like think about, because within this lore on Undine, they, like I said, they talk about everything else because you can't have one without the other. All four elements are dependent and reliant on each other, because it's supposed to create a balance ultimately. And I'm thinking, why would they call it spirit guardians? And it seems like Undine can pretty much hold her own. Of course, using Lola Pachica as a medium. I mean, I look at the size of the spell that she casts to go against Ivanica. I mean, Undine is a force of nature. But I'm sorry, I completely skipped over what I was going to say. Even the spirit guardians fit the bill physically to how these spirits match up. So I'm going to go with the ones that I remember. They say that Undine, these water spirits, are naturally larger than humans, while the Slif, or no, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Undine is usually human sized, while Slif ends up becoming a bit larger than a human, and they say is rougher and something else. And then the salamander is also very long and lean. And then the gnome, of course, you would say is short. And so when you look at someone like Serato, and she's Earth, she's got an Earth affinity. She's very short and stocky, kind of like they describe the gnome or the pygmy of Earth. And then you have Floga, he's a tall dude, but he's pretty slender. He's muscular, but it's a slender build. And then we have, what is his name? It's like, it starts with an S, I know that, but the Wind Mage. He's a sylph, and he's a tall dude. He's very lean. He's very, very lean, not muscular. I'm forgetting stuff now, but that's fine. You kind of get the point. But they're also not assigned. I can't say assigned. But they're given the most common sex among them is like Undine. It's very common that Undines are female. It's very common that salamanders are male. I believe they say it's very common for a gnome to be a male as well. I could be mistaking that. And I don't remember what they say about Slif herself. But again, in this crack storm in my head, I'm trying to put pieces together, and I'm thinking, okay, hey, you know what? What if these spirit guardians are actually hybrids of spirits mating with human? And this is why you have one of each element, and we don't see any other mages there. Now, this video entirely is probably off-putting to begin with, because the spirit guardians are like, we know them as fodder. And I'm not going to take that away from you, because that's exactly how we know them as. They didn't do anything super special. But let's look at what we had in the matchups. They're going up against devil-possessed people. Devils break down everything natural about anything. So it is not a good match for these guys to have been going up against devil-possessed to begin with. Albeit Gaja did exceedingly well, they might not just stack up to someone like Gaja. Now, and it's also something pretty peculiar as well with Gaja, is that there is no lightning spirit. That's just how that plays out. So it could be that Gaja just had an advantage of not being a specific elemental. I'm not saying that lightning doesn't count or anything, but it probably helps in this regard. So, like I said, this is what I'm thinking, is that all of these guardians, with the exception of Gaja and probably Lolo, it depends, are hybrid human spirit things. Now, you're probably wondering, like, okay, so you're saying, like, Floka's the Salamander's son. I don't know if it's, like, Fuegolean's Salamander's son, but we have to remember that these spirits are not just standalone spirits. These these spirits usually exist in a realm that is unseen by man. So let's put it this way. We were introduced to Belle when Yuno was in a very dire situation. I mean, everyone was about to get clapped by Mars. So death was imminent. And then Sylph revealed herself to Yuno. Then we can't say what happens with Salamander as far as fauna goes, not too well. But let's look at Fuegoleon. Fuegoleon was knocked out for like weeks or something after he got his arm cut off by Patri, and I mean, I really don't want to call it a near death thing, because like, who dies from getting their arm cut off? I don't know. He wasn't left bleeding out for too long. I don't know. Fuegoleon might be just built inefficiently. I don't know. But I would say he was pretty close to death, regardless of the situation. And then when he comes back, he's got Salamander. Now, let's backtrack and go to Fauna, where Fauna did die. And so did her elf counterpart, was, technically dead, with Fire Base, and so Salamander ends up revealing itself to her, even though she was not sound in spirit or mentally. There was a lot of disruption within her soul and her mind. So it didn't entirely make sense that Salamander chose her like that. And then we don't know anything about the Earth Spirit, of course. But when we think of it like that, when you are on the precipice of dying, or you have died and experienced the afterlife, or have been touched by that, you would probably begin to see things, that veil starts to lift. If you ever watch Berserk, the closer Guts gets to the eclipse, the more he starts seeing, he starts encountering, demons, and then he finds Puck as a fairy. And this was a precursor to that event. And that was ultimately supposed to be his death, but he ends up superseding it. And now this whole veil has been lifted. And for the rest of that, after the eclipse, that was, of course, due to Griffith coming back and lifting that veil himself upon his rebirth. But that was the whole point of that. And that's what I'm saying, is that these people were all very close to death. And they had a very natural affinity, so they ended up acquiring these spirits. Now, of course, it probably has some more depth to it than just that, because there's a lot of wind mages, probably. There's a lot of water, earth, fire, everything, And I don't, of course, count Undine in this, because there's a specific contract that she uses between priestesses. But I think there's something there, of course. But this also gives way to what I think is happening with Noelle. Now, everyone has been saying since Vonica left the Heart Kingdom in a complete mess, that Noelle is going to get Undine. And the reason I think that Noelle has not got Undine yet is because she can't. And this is the thing. So imagine Spirit Guardians. These guys are all about their element. Literally all about their element. Why doesn't Floga have Salamander? Not saying, we don't actually know how much these guys scale. I mean, yeah, we do. They got fucking clapped by disciples. But still, you would think that these guys that are very sound in their nature would get a spirit. You would think Floga would probably get Salamander, because he's using mana method, which is nature's mana, but he doesn't. And for everyone else, you would think the same thing, but they don't have these spirits. And I think the reason why is because a human spirit hybrid just cannot have a spirit like that. That would kind of be a cheat code, and it's kind of redundant. What I do think is that these guys do have a lot of power. Just the circumstance wasn't right, and they were not prepared. Of course, they were ambushed. So we will see how they stack up when, the next chapter drops, hopefully, since they are all there. But to get to Noelle, this is what I'm thinking, is that she is a human elemental hybrid. And I know that sounds crazy, but what else on my channel doesn't sound crazy? But this is the thing, is that Noelle would be, of course, the best candidate for Undine, but the fact that she doesn't have Undine can go for other reasons. So let's start with the most logical, is that Undine is down for the count. The last time we saw Undine, Undine got cursed. Right. Now, another logical thing to think is that Morris is currently transplanting, or has already transplanted, Undine into his own grimoire. So Morris could have Undine. Very plausible. And I would probably go for the latter on that one. But I would also say, in a more illogical standpoint, that Noelle is a hybrid of a water spirit and a human. And you're probably like, oh, well, we saw, both mom and dad, and that's totally fine. We didn't see dad all the way. Here's the thing. When elementals marry a human, they do end up taking a more human-esque shape. I mean, this is something that was put into the lore, was that they can take shape of their element. They can be all water like Undine, or all earth like the pygmy spirit. I think it's so weird to call it a pygmy. They can be all fire, or just a flaming lizard, but they can be in human form to interact with humans if they so please. So I'm thinking that if we accept the fact that these are not just lone in nature spirits, that there are also other spirits like them out there, then we can come to find out that it's possible that the Silva siblings are elemental hybrids, and Noelle having the brunt of most of that power. For what reason, I don't know. I mean, you guys, I can only theorize so far. I'm reaching so hard right now. But I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy because Noelle has this crazy affinity for water. Like, she's so adaptable when it comes to that sort of stuff. And she was pulling off what Laura Pachica pulled off with Undine by herself, by accident, of course, in the beginning of Black Clover, and of course not really towards the scale of what Lola Pachica and Undine pulled, but she's up there. I mean, she has this vastly underrated attack potency that even Yami points out that her attack potency is ridiculous. I think he said something like he knew that she had great latent potential, but like he did not expect her to be that kind of attack mage to like cut someone's body in half like Veto. But that's what I think about Noelle possibly. I really don't want her to get Undine, so I'm really reaching on this. I really don't want that. I want her to get strong on her own, or I want her to get something different. I know some of us were talking about Noelle getting like a water dragon spirit or something. That would be cool. I would be really stoked to see some other water-like things, like her encountering a Kelpie, which is, this wild water beast of mythology. It's just like it's a water horse. But they are extremely, extremely dangerous, and I would love to see Noelle get something like that. Especially being a Valkyrie, to have just like this horse that just screams death and despair as she carries away the slain on the battlefield. I think that's super dope. But now let's get to Sister Lily, because this is where all of this crackpot theory stems from. Now, we don't know much about Sister Lily whatsoever, but the little that we did see was just a little bit weird to put in this series without it meaning anything at all. So we don't know Sister Lily's parents or any of her background. She doesn't really talk about it. All we know is that Sister Lily is, she's not trying to get married to nobody, and I think this is kind of, what would you say? It's ironic, given what I just told you guys about elementals, where if they get married, they get an immortal soul, which is something that it seems like they would want. They don't really talk about them wanting that and actually going for that. It seems like they just kind of live their life, and if it happens, it happens. But I do think this could be a play on the irony of Sister Lily not wanting to, really be involved with anybody like that. So when we also look at some other things that happened with Sister Lily, she encountered one of the elves in the elf arc, and that elf, I do believe, tells her that her power is pretty great, and I don't, did they say it rivals an elf's power? Something like that. And that's really weird to say, because we know elves are pretty broken in power just naturally. So for a human to get that kind of accolade from an elf and not be a knight whatsoever is pretty important to note. So I'm thinking that she could be a hybrid. And if we look at Lola Pichica and Sister Lily, they have very similar traits here. And so do the rest of, the other Heart Princess that we did see. They have very, very similar traits. They all have black hair. I believe they all have a mole as well. And they all, of course, are water mages. So this is what got me down this little rabbit hole of me thinking, like, okay, maybe the Spirit Guardians are also hybrids. And, they may... Tabana's going to have to flex their power if this is the case, because this would not showcase well against what we really didn't see against the disciples. There's not too much of a reason for that. So if I had to rank this theory on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving it like a 5, maybe a 4, because the Spirit Guardians were straight up trash in their fight. There's no reason for any of the mages that were their underlings to surpass them like they did, which was a big yikes. So I don't know. Like I said, this is something I just wanted to bring up, but I do think it's a possibility for at least Sister Lily. I don't know what role it's going to play in the story, but like I said in the beginning, this is going to be one of those, okay, that's cool, but what does it do? Really doesn't do much of anything, honestly. Not that I can think of, at least. But like I said, it was at least worth a talk. And maybe we'll see something like that from the Spirit Guardians or Noelle or Sister Lily. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there for you guys. I also got a little bit sidetracked on another theory that I'm looking at right now, because there's a really cool thing that I looked at that involves swords, and it sounds a lot like our boy OATz's swords. And if this is drawing from that source of material, that means by the end of this arc, we're gonna lose Asta. Yeah, that means we will definitely lose Asta. And it's not something that was foreseen by Julie, so don't pull that. If it's going from this source, this was completely unforeseen. This is something I've not seen anyone talk about. I haven't even thought about myself. Yeah. But let's just say there's a lot of assumptions happening, and we might have to kind of relook at how you've been looking at Asta and his interactions with the swords and anti-magic and whatnot. But that's for another video. Hopefully it's soon. There's so much to look at, because I do want to give you guys some kind of fleshed out theories that have good backing, but it does get hard because, Tabata doesn't stick to just Norse mythology or just Kabbalistic mythology. So I have to methodically piece these things together to make it make sense. So hopefully you guys respect that. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not telling you guys how to think. This could be totally wrong. But at the end of the day, it's just fun to talk about. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. That's all I got. I will see you guys in the next video. This has been OATz to go. You either know or you don't.